When America cannot beat its competitor at its own game, it changes the goalposts. Such is the true color of the so-called rule-based order. All of this exposes the truth about what the climate religion has been all along, an environmental issue politicized to become a powerful weapon to deny the poorest people in the world the cheapest forms of energy, and by this slow down their rise.
喺睇片之前，大家記得分享、讚好同訂閱卓見名家，最緊要撳埋呢個鐘仔，咁你就唔會錯過我哋嘅最新影片。
For nearly 2 decades, the United States and its Western allies have been touting climate change as the single biggest threat to humanity, urging developing countries, top among them China, to hop on the climate bandwagon and adopt aggressive climate policies, even at the risk of compromising their growth. It had been a 21st century environmental crusade spearheaded by U.S. Democrat Al Gore after he lost the U.S. presidential election in the year 2000. Since then, climate change issues have been propelled into the top positions of the international political and developmental agenda of the United States and of the United Nations. Although adopting the standards and schedules to combat climate change as set forth by the developed countries could certainly snub domestic growth and development, developing countries were repeatedly told that doing so would not harm their economic development. To the contrary, it would contribute to their growth, create jobs and new industries, and foster innovation. 10 years ago, President Barack Obama said in the United Nations Climate Summit, quote, "For all the immediate changes that we gathered to address, terrorism, instability, inequality, disease, there is one issue that will define the contours of this century more dramatically than any other, and that is the urgent and growing threat of a changing climate," unquote. He called out China, saying that as the most populous country on earth, with the fastest increase in carbon emission, it must join the United States in leading the rest of the world in greenhouse gas reduction. We have a responsibility to lead. That's what big nations have to do. China accepted the challenge and took it very seriously. It embarked on massive expansion of its use of nuclear power and renewable energy. It reduced the use of coal, increased the use of natural gas, and it curbed its thirst for oil by becoming the world's biggest market for electrical vehicles. In less than 5 years, despite the 2 years pandemic, the share of electric vehicles in new vehicle registration in China shot up from 5% in the year 2020 to nearly 30% today. It also became a world leader in the manufacturing of solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles, and batteries of all sorts. During the Obama years, climate change was a pillar in U.S.-China relations. Whenever the relations went sideways, climate cooperation came to the rescue. But with Donald Trump's entry into the White House in the year 2017, everything changed. Trump cared little for climate change, and one of his first actions in office was pulling the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement. With the unraveling of U.S.-China relations, there was no more a bonding issue on which the two countries could cooperate. Joe Biden's election shifted the pendulum again. Biden returned to U.S. into the Paris Agreement, and in April 2021, he hosted a climate leaders summit reaffirming U.S. commitment to global decarbonization and calling on major economies to go even further than their commitments under the Paris Agreement. As in 2014, China took the call with earnest intent. President Xi Jinping reiterated China's commitment to strive to bring carbon dioxide emissions to a peak before 2030 and to achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. The same Democrats who pushed China in this direction are now complaining about the overcapacity in the very same green industries that promise to save the world from so-called climate catastrophe. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who visited China last month, blamed China for decimating U.S. industries and threatened to take measures against China for doing exactly what the U.S. had urged it to do 10 years earlier: go green. She would not entertain the idea that the prices of solar panels and EVs may have fallen due to China's high productivity, nor would she self-reflect about the possibility that the root cause of this overcapacity may be the West's underinvestment rather than China's overinvestment. She could not see the irony of criticizing China for subsidizing its green energy industries, while her own government is pumping billions of dollars in Inflation Reduction Act grants and subsidies to Americans' green energy industries and additional billions to build a national network of electric vehicle chargers as part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The Biden administration has already signaled China's electric vehicles as its next jihad. Earlier this year, Biden issued executive order to investigate the national security risk associated with China's electric vehicles, and administration officials have already indicated that cars made in Mexico by Chinese companies will be heavily tariffed. Indeed, the same Democrats who for years have been ringing the alarm bells over a looming climate catastrophe are now blaming China for flooding global markets with inexpensive new green products and are calling for bans, tariffs, and other mechanisms that would prevent them from being affordable to the U.S. consumers and consumers internationally. Consider Democrats Senator Sherrod Brown from Ohio, who in 2021 said, quote, "We have to act now to grow the renewable energy economy and to make our communities more resilient to climate disasters," unquote. But in 2024, facing a tough re-election campaign, he must curry favor with Ohio's manufacturing groups, and he is now urging the Biden administration to ban inexpensive Chinese electric vehicles from the U.S. markets. Equally hypocritical are those American politicians who sing the praises of solar energy as planet-saving technology while supporting bans on Chinese solar panels on a false premise that their manufacturing involved forced labor. If climate change is indeed an existential threat to humanity, China should be applauded, not condemned, for pouring resources into the space, providing subsidies and research money to find ways to make renewable energy affordable. Furthermore, lowering the costs of green energy make it more affordable in a developing world where 3/4 of humanity happen to live. The same climate duplicity has also affected Europe. In his recent visit to Paris and Europe, the Chinese leader must have received an earful from his hosts about China's overcapacity, as the same sentiment was aired by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in his visit to Beijing earlier. Europe, which has been in the forefront of the electrification of transportation for years, is deeply troubled by the popularity of Chinese EV in Europe, and the European Commission is investigating ways to build barriers to the European market. The Economist magazine, which over the years dedicated many cover stories to the climate crisis, titled one of its recent covers, quote, China's EV onslaught, unquote, blaming Xi Jinping for setting off another trade war and calling Western politicians to prepare for the second, quote, China shock, unquote. Alas, when America cannot beat its competitor at its own game, it changes the goalposts. Such is the true color of the so-called rule-based order. All of this exposes the truth about what the climate religion has been all along, an environmental issue politicized to become a powerful weapon to deny the poorest people in the world the cheapest forms of energy, and by this slow down their rise. Now that suddenly green energy is becoming affordable to all, Washington and Brussels' ambition to protect the planet is eroded by their real agenda, to protect their own part of the planet. Moral high grounds can easily give way to political expediency, convenience, and selfishness. All that they are saying is, curse you if you do, and curse you if you don't, all in the good and righteous name of climate change.
中意名家分析，記得俾 like 同埋分享，支持同訂閱卓見名家，最緊要撳埋呢個鐘仔，咁就唔會錯過我哋嘅新片。